So now that we have seen very roughly how CI workflows are supposed to be set up on GitHub, let's go ahead and set up a very simple workflow so we can test it out. So as I mentioned, the way you configure this is by placing YAML files into the .github/workflows directory. So let's make sure that this directory exists in our repository. So you'll see here that I have the repository open, which is what the repository we created at the very beginning. So we'll go ahead and run make dir -p so that it creates parent directories if necessary, and then .github/workflows. In this particular case, this directory already existed, since there was already some workflow that is configured to run, but we'll ignore that for now and we'll set up our own workflow. So let's set out our workflow by let's start by first removing all the workflows that are currently in there. So let's remove GitHub workflows and then this test analysis.yaml, and let's create a new file. So let's create main.yml. So inside here we'll specify exactly what is supposed to happen for this workflow. As I mentioned in the previous lesson, there's only two required keys. We need to specify on and jobs. So let's start by filling those out. So for on, we'll want to specify when this workflow is supposed to run. In this case, let's keep it simple and let's only trigger it when we push something to GitHub. And then in jobs, let's only define a single job. Let's call it greeting. We'll need to tell it on which platform it's supposed to run. So we can do runs on, and then let's tell it to run on the latest version of Ubuntu. Ubuntu latest, and then let's specify the list of steps that it needs to take. In this case, let's keep it simple and let's simply run an echo command that simply says hello world. So this is the simplest thing you can have. As I mentioned in the previous lesson, it is convenient to name steps and the workflow files so that we can more easily identify them. So let's go ahead and do that. For this step, let's specify a name key. Let's call it print hello. And for the workflow file, for the workflow itself, let's give it a name. Let's just say example. Now, if we save this file, we'll want to push it to GitHub. But before we do that, since we're working on a new feature, let's go ahead and create a new branch so that we're not working on the main branch. So let's run git checkout -b, then feature, add actions. Then let's look at the changes. You'll see that we have this file that we deleted and then this one that we just created. So let's add everything in GitHub workflows. So now it's all ready to be added. Let's commit the changes. Let's write for the commit message added first workflow. And then we can go ahead and push the changes to GitHub. So now if we go to GitHub over here, you'll see that now we have this option to create a pull request. Let's actually go ahead and create it now. Let's call the pull request add workflows or add GitHub actions. Let's create the pull request. And then you'll see over here that in checks that we have the example workflow with the greeting job that we run. We can see more details here, or we can see more details here in the commit message. It tells us the same thing. Alternatively, you can also just go to the actions tab here, and you'll see this job that I just ran, the workflow. You'll see that here we have our greeting job with the print hello step that we added, and it just simply ran this echo command.